Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of ShareNet. My name is Ian, and today, very exciting, we have our guest speaker, Emily, with us. And today, she's going to share with us the topic of podcasting. Hi, Emily. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Very good. Thanks for being here today. Now, our topic today is podcasting. Before we get into the details of that, I want to ask you to talk about a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What are you up to, and what are you currently working on?
So I am a blind snowboarder who's currently working towards getting to the Paralympics as one of the first blind snowboarders. So that keeps me super busy. When I'm not training for snowboarding, I am a full-time educational assistant with one of the school boards.
Very cool. Wow, so snowboarding can be another topic on its own.
Absolutely.
Wow, maybe I should invite you for another topic to come back on to talk about snowboarding. Because snowboarding, I tried
it's
it.
It's a huge topic.
Yeah, it's really hard for me. And then you are snowboarding with a visual impairment?
Yes. Yep.
Wow.
So yeah.
I can't even imagine how you can go down the hill like that.
It takes a lot of work, but it's absolutely amazing. It's so fun.
That's a topic for another time.
Absolutely.
But let's get back to podcasting. So, how did you get started in the area of podcasting?
So it actually works with my snowboarding and getting to the Paralympics actually. So, originally I wanted to make a website for para snowboarding because when I first started to be a blind snowboarder and first started to be an athlete in racing and stuff, I had a really hard time finding information on the sport itself, let alone my category of blind snowboarding. It's out there, but it seems to be scattered and not exactly all in one place. And some people say one thing and others people say other things, so I think it was a little bit scattered and it was really hard to find that information, and I'm still researching because I still don't have all the answers that I want. So I wanted to make a website originally, and I'm still planning on it in the future, just to have all the information for para snowboarding, just to make sure it's more or less in one spot instead of multiple spots. So 2 years ago, I actually applied for something called the Holman Prize for Lighthouse for the Blind in San Francisco, California. And basically what that is, it's a prize that's given out every year to 4 or 5 people. Anyone who is blind is able to apply for the Holman Prize, and as long as you have a project that you want to work towards, the prize is a good amount of money towards that prize, and they help you work on your project and make sure it is a successful project. So I applied to this a few years ago in hopes that I would win one of the prizes so that I could create the website. When I first applied for the Holman Prize, the first thing I had to do is create a 90-second pitch video on my project. And all of the videos from all of the participants went on YouTube. And then I was one of the ones selected as a semi-finalist to get the prize. So then I had to send in a lot more info on the project and just all the budget and the things that I wanted to accomplish.
Right, the details of everything, basically.
Just so they knew exactly what the money was going towards. Unfortunately, my project wasn't picked to be one of the finalists, and I was pretty upset about it because I was really hoping that I would actually win one of the prizes because it would have benefited the para snowboarding a lot.
Definitely.
But as it turns out, I actually did sort of win, and I'll tell you why in a second. So as I said before, one of the things that happened is all of our pitches got onto YouTube. So everyone could see it, and all the other participants could see it. And so another person had actually applied to the Holman Prize, and his project was to create a podcasting network for people with disabilities.
Okay.
So he was actually looking through the pitches on YouTube just to see what other projects were being created. And he came across my pitch, and he was very excited. He automatically was like, I need to get a hold of this person because I think she would be a really good person for a podcast. So he ended up reaching out to me. As it turns out, we actually have a mutual friend.
Okay.
And so the mutual friend was able to get us both into contact. And we started talking together, and he told me about his project, and I told him about my project. And then we started talking about potentially creating a podcast to help with getting the word out about para snowboarding and about what I was doing. So
very cool.
And we just kept talking about it, and I was like, all right, I think that's a great idea to get started, is to make a podcast and to get the word out. So
wow, so even though you didn't win the entire thing, something positive came out of this.
Absolutely.
And podcasting is now your new goal, your new hobby, your new interest. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So all your podcasts are on the topic of snowboarding and para snowboarding, to be exact.
Anything that's like related to para snowboarding.
Okay.
We're actually I'm currently interviewing some people who are doing surfing, who are adaptive surfers.
Okay.
So it's not exactly related to snowboarding, but it's in they're still they're
similar sports.
It's a similar sport. They're just on water and stuff.
Right.
But one of my friends suggested branching out to that as well, just to get some more
Very cool.
Yeah. So that's pretty neat actually, because actually I would love to try surfing at one point. So it's been kind of neat for me to talk to them and get their experiences and stuff. So.
Okay, so let me ask you, how did you get started in snowboarding, for example? Maybe that's one of the things for another episode, but I'm just curious right now.
Absolutely.
How did you get started?
One of my best friends, and who is still my best friend, she was part of a program that taught people with disabilities how to ski and snowboard. We went to school together at the School for the Blind in Brantford, Ontario, where I used to live. And so one night she invited me to come check out the program. So I did, and I was like, okay, I want to actually do this program. So next season, I actually started out as a skier.
Okay. Skiing first, okay.
Yes, skiing first. And then, so I did that for a few years. And then my guide who was guiding me the year, she ended up hurting herself really bad, so she was out for the rest of the year.
Oh, no.
But as it turns out, my best friend had two guides, and she had actually just started snowboarding a few years ago, a few years prior. And so her main guide was like, do you want to try out snowboarding? I'm like, okay, why not? New challenge, new adventure, sure. So I tried it out and absolutely fell in love with it, and I haven't been back skiing since. So.
Okay, you like that better over skiing?
I do, yeah.
Is it because of the speed, or what is it that makes you
I think
more of a snowboarder?
I think it's more of the challenge. I'm a person who loves who loves having challenges. I just love being challenged.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think it's that. Not that skiing wasn't fun. Skiing was fun, but I didn't find it super challenging like I did with snowboarding. It took me a good 2 years to figure out the balancing for snowboarding. And then once I got it, it just kind of clicked, and I was like, oh, that's how you do it.
Very cool. Now, let's go back to the topic of podcasting. Now, what do you enjoy the most about podcasting?
I enjoy interviewing people and just like learning about their experiences, because like everyone has like different experiences, like whether they're training a different way or whether they're doing something different while they're snowboarding, or whether their goals are different than going to the Paralympics. I just really enjoy like hearing people's experiences and like stories of how they got to where they are today. So
Yep, and their experience can be shared on this podcast where they can inspire other people.
absolutely, yeah.
That's very similar to what we're trying to do as well. So that's why we're producing a series of videos focusing on youth.
That's awesome.
Now, let's talk about the biggest challenge. Okay, what is the biggest challenge in producing a podcast?
I would say the biggest challenge is like working around people's schedules and working around my schedule, because I have a busy schedule myself, and then just like working around people's schedules, that tends to be the biggest challenge. So that often takes a little bit longer to work itself out. So I would say that's the biggest challenge. It's like working out the scheduling and making sure it works for everyone. So
For sure, yeah.
and making it work, for sure, it just takes a little bit longer than I think it should. But
Yep. Arranging, especially when you have a whole lineup of guests in a month, then it's quite a challenge just to get everybody to attend the meeting at certain time, certain date.
Yeah, because everyone has like different schedules and different times where they can come.
Yep. Very true. So what are your plans for the future in this area?
Definitely continuing to build the podcast. I'm actually in the process of getting some past Paralympians actually on the podcast.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's very exciting. I've already been in contact with a few of them, and they're very excited to come on the podcast. And actually, one of them has been a really big inspiration for me to get into para snowboarding. So I'm especially excited about that one.
Very cool.
So definitely continuing to build the podcast, and then as the podcast is growing, eventually working on the website as well.
We also recently interviewed there's one Paralympian came on our show as well, talking about goalball. So
that's cool.
That was, I think, 3 episodes ago, and then we also did one for table tennis as well. But that one was in Cantonese with English subtitles.
Oh, wow.
We felt that was very, very interesting
would be
video
very
to produce
interesting.
because of the translation, subtitles, and
Yeah.
everything. That was really fun to produce, I have to say.
That's so cool.
So, last question. Any advice for people who are planning to produce podcasts? Any advice for them?
I would say take your time when you're wanting to create a podcast. It's not going to happen overnight. And know that you're going to run into things that might not work the way you were hoping that they work. So just take it one day at a time. Find people who are willing to help you with your podcasts, because you're going to need help, whether it's for editing or finding people to come on your podcast to interview, or just like content for your podcast. I know for my podcast, it's been super important having the support of my podcast producer and a few other people to help make sure the podcast is running smoothly, and to get people to come on the podcast to be interviewed and stuff. So I would say that's a huge thing as well. So yeah.
Thank you, Emily. Very good advice.
No problem.
Folks, thank you for joining us today. We will be back on a Monday at 3 o'clock, and that's when we usually have our show. And thank you, Emily, for coming on today.
No problem. Thanks for having me again.
And I'll see you all next week. Bye now.